That was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed.
When it comes to RuPaul's Drag Race, we usually think of the superstars of the franchise, like Trixie Mattel, Bob the Drag Queen, Serena Chacha, or Bianca Del Rio. It is through success stories like theirs that there's a certain level of expectation that the fanbase has in regards to the financial status of a queen. What I mean by this is that the very fact that we are seeing these queens on television makes a lot of fans garner the perspective where they think that everyone that's been on the show is now a filthy rich drag queen. But that's not the case. Especially nowadays, queens that make it onto the show are starting to come to the dark realization that being on TV doesn't necessarily change your life for the better. In this video, I'm going to be talking about Stacy Layne Matthews, the struggles that she had to endure during and after her season, along with a short exploration of what it means to make it on RuPaul's Drag Race. Let's begin. Stacy Layne Matthews grew up in Back Swamp, North Carolina, a town where you can probably already tell is really conservative and tends to be really mean when it comes to people who are different in any kind of way. Stacy being cast on season 3 would allow her to experience flying on an airplane for the first time in her life. Once she got to Los Angeles, it wouldn't take long before the world was introduced to Stacy Layne Matthews. For the first couple episodes of season 3, Stacy managed to do well enough to get by in the competition. Yet a lot of the queens on the cast took notice of Stacy, some for good reason and others for bad, as they called out Stacy for not being at the same level as the other contestants. Even Delta Work called out Stacy, accusing her of using her weight as a crutch, and the Heathers also weren't that big of a fan of her. On season 3 episode 4, during a walkthrough for the episode, Stacy told RuPaul that when she was in high school, she used to be the person in charge of reading out announcements every morning. That's when in Untucked, Raja says that she imagines that the school Stacy went to had all 12 grades in one room. By the end of the episode, Stacy was placed in the bottom 2 against India Farah. They would lip sync to Meeting in the Ladies' Room by Climax, resulting in Stacy winning the lip sync and getting to stay another week, while India Farah sashayed her way into beefing with Derek Barry. Now, when people talk about Snatch Game, they tend to forget that on season 3, Stacy Layne Matthews won the second ever Snatch Game with her performance of Monique. A fun fact is that Stacy actually ended up meeting Monique in person soon after the airing of season 3, which was during a Pride gig in Milwaukee. They ended up having a really nice conversation together where Stacy was able to tell her how inspiring Monique was to creating her drag persona. While on the runway for the episode, the judges told Stacy that her outfit was very flattering and that she knew how to dress according to her body shape, to which Manila later said in Untucked, quote, "Whatever the judges are drinking, can I have some please?" Delta Work also called out Stacy's performance, citing that she doesn't like when big girls decide to rest on eating food and perpetuating stereotypes associated with bigger girls in order to be funny. The other queens also felt that Stacy had been favored by the judges simply because she was the most improved out of the queens competing. Regardless, Stacy Layne Matthews would end up winning the Snatch Game episode. On season 3 episode 6, the queens were asked who they thought should be eliminated, with Stacy and Shangela having their names called out the most. Later on, in the Untucked for the episode, Raja and Delta ended up getting into a heated argument with Shangela regarding the way she had been acting throughout the season. Meanwhile, Alexis, Yara, and Stacy had remained silent for the entire argument. After Raja and the rest of the Heathers left the room, Shangela called out Stacy and the other queens for not standing up for Shangela while the other queens were coming for her, which resulted in Stacy leaving the set temporarily and returning by the end of the episode. After Untucked was done, the bottom 2 for the episode would be Stacy Layne Matthews and Alexis Mateo. They would lip sync to Knock on Wood by Amy Stewart, resulting in Alexis winning the lip sync and Stacy Layne Matthews being eliminated from the competition. Stacy says that towards the end of the competition, she felt that there was a big separation going on between her and most of the cast, presumably referring to the Heathers, and felt it was unnecessary since at the end of the day, they were all going to become sisters. She also felt very proud leaving the competition because she had been able to represent her small town of Back Swamp Township, North Carolina. The day after Stacy was eliminated, Shangela felt bad that Stacy came all the way from North Carolina and wasn't going to be able to see downtown Los Angeles. And since she had just been eliminated, they were about to fly her back to her home city. So Shangela decided to sneak out Stacy Stacy to the club. The queens that ended up going were Shangela, Alexis Mateo, Yara Sofia, and Stacy Layne Matthews. They ended up having an amazing night together where Stacy really got to enjoy the nightlife in the big city. Around 3 a.m. they all went back to their hotel rooms and production never found out about what happened. Stacy felt very humbled after her appearance on season 3 because she was now traveling the country doing gigs at many locations she hadn't been to before. It was also eye-opening for her when she worked with so many local queens that were struggling to display their art. It reinforced the fact that Stacy was very lucky to be experiencing the mild success she had. Flash forward a couple years later, in January 2016, Stacy ended up coming out as a trans woman, something that to many wouldn't have come as a surprise considering as far back as season 3, Stacy had been saying how for her entire life she felt like she was a woman, but took a while to truly come to terms with being transgender. She also points out that over the past few years she's been living a life for other people, never putting her own interests first, constantly trying to fit the mold that others had created for her. It also seemed that her environment must have been toxic due to many of her family members still referring to Stacy as if she was a man. For this reason, Stacy felt envious of all the other Drag Race queens who had begun transitioning, because Stacy also wanted to have that freedom. Therefore, she decided she was going to start living for herself, and those who don't support it can leave her alone. In 2017, the AAA girls released a music video for their song called Heather, which featured Stacy Layne Matthews. This was around the same time where Stacy had begun to gain a small bit of traction within the subculture of the show. For instance, Stacy sort of had a similar trajectory to that of Jasmine Masters, as both these queens hadn't been all that talked about in a while. But due to a growing interest in their time in the show, as well as their behavior outside of it, fans started to sort of root for queens like Stacy and Jasmine, who were undervalued by the fans. So the AAA girls saw it as an opportunity to not only capitalize off the growing interest in Stacy, but also provide Stacy with an opportunity to showcase herself and hopefully gain more of a following. Which leads us to All Stars 4. As we know, it's strongly speculated that Stacy Layne Matthews was supposed to be part of the official All Stars 4 cast, but ended up getting shortlisted last minute. For this reason, they'd end up basing a challenge around her for All Stars 4 episode 2, along with a wide range of cameos throughout the season. Yet, there was a lot of missing pieces to this story. Like, why didn't production cast Stacy on the season? Or what was the point of even basing a challenge around her? Stacy would later reveal in an interview that originally when Stacy was contacted to be part of All Stars 4, production had led her to believe that she was going to be part of the official cast, adding that she had to go through an audition process involving several evaluations. Stacy got so excited to the point that she had already began to purchase outfits for the season, and that while discussing her upcoming appearance, production was very vague to Stacy regarding what role she'd be playing in All Stars 4, but they did tell her they'd make sure she's seen in a positive light. Eventually though, Stacy found out that she wasn't actually going to be competing, which in a way was sort of a relief since she wouldn't have to worry about getting eliminated. The general consensus was that having an episode dedicated to celebrating the legacy of Stacy Layne Matthews was a way of getting the new audience at home more acquainted with her, to sort of build a new base for Stacy's following. So having her entrance on episode 2 be accompanied by the reactions of all the contestants on the season was a perfect way to solidify Stacy as an icon to both the franchise and the fans. It's for this reason that many presumed Stacy Layne Matthews would now be a lock for All Stars 5. Yet we've now had several All Star seasons take place, and Stacy still has not returned to our screens. There's also been speculation that Stacy is unable to go back on the show due to health reasons, but there's no sources on that. Fortunately, Stacy's cameos on All Stars 4 would in fact be very beneficial to her career, as the fanbase at the time was celebrating her, being very excited about her new return to the franchise. After this, she received a small boost in her bookings and was able to enjoy the mild success for a while. Yet things would start to slowly fall apart for Stacy in the future. In April 2020, a month after the worldwide lockdowns had begun due to the COVID-19 pandemic, Stacy ended up making a post on social media regarding her living situation. In it, she points out that she suffers from a lot of anxiety, which makes it super difficult for her to be able to deal with stress. The pandemic has only made things worse for her, as the few gigs that she had been getting a week were no longer happening, and she isn't doing very well with money. She adds that she spent a lot of her life worrying about others and prioritizing them instead of herself, and she wishes things would just go back to normal soon so that they can all return to doing their regular gigs. Unfortunately, like a lot of nightlife entertainers at the time, Stacy did not qualify for the stimulus checks that the government had been giving out to those who were unemployed due to the lockdown that came into effect. So there was a constant state of stress and anxiety that many queens had to deal with. Regardless, Stacy was one of these queens, and the next couple years would prove to be very challenging. In July 2020, during an Instagram live stream, Alexis Mateo asked Stacy Layne Matthews that if World of Wonder ever invited her back for All-Stars, if she would do it. To which Stacy said no, because the last time this happened, production convinced her that she'd be on All-Stars 4, even making her sign a contract to be on the season. But while Stacy was on vacation in Mexico, World of Wonder reached out to Stacy to let her know she would no longer be part of the All-Stars 4 cast.
Hell no.
You don't want to go? Why would you not go? Tell me.
Because they convinced me I was on All-Stars 4 and made me sign a contract and called me while I was in Mexico and said, never mind.
They said good night, God bless you.
It was followed by a tweet that said, quote, "I'll spill the tea one day on what was said to me on the set of All-Stars 4 and why I will never do All-Stars. I never forget." This was actually a pretty important statement to make, considering it went against the previous story, which was that production had planned from the beginning that Stacy would be doing a special cameo on the second episode of All-Stars 4. But in this live stream, Stacy alludes that production had in fact been planning on making Stacy be part of the official cast, but changed their minds about it, which resulted in them calling Stacy while she was on vacation in Mexico to tell her they had changed their minds. So at this point, it's up to interpretation whether or not Stacy was actually meant to compete or not. Subsequently, on July 19th, 2020, Stacy announced that she was homeless on the same day as her birthday, expressing that she's feeling very emotional and if fans have resources they can give her, she will take it. A couple weeks later, in August 2020, Stacy explained that a big reason why she was struggling to even find someone who would rent her a place was due to not having a quote real job with fixed income. So many homeowners didn't want to rent to Stacy since she'd be considered a liability. This was also in the middle of the pandemic, so it was even more difficult for anyone to find a job. That's why Stacy was now posting on Instagram asking fans if any one of them that lived in her area had a place that they could rent out to her. By October 2020, fans were still sharing links to donate to Stacy Layne Matthews, as it seemed that things weren't getting all that better for her. Stacy then flew under the radar for a while, until April 2021 when she posted on Facebook that she had ended up in the hospital. There wasn't a lot of information as to why she landed there, but she assures fans that she's alive, and that all she wants is for them to send her love and support. Although it's important to point out that Stacy had been going through a lot of health-related issues for many years, especially in regards to her weight, with her mentioning in many interviews that she's been trying to improve her diet habits and getting into better shape. Stacy even had to put her hormone therapy on hold for a while until she could get her health back in check. In July 2021, Stacy made another post on social media. This time, she starts off saying that she's aware that there's a lot of people that are sick of her making posts on social media asking fans for money, but that she's been trying her best to get back on track. If she didn't need the support, she wouldn't be asking. She also points out that she was trying to be a DoorDash driver, but due to living in a small city, she can't really make any money out of it. She hopes that fans can give her some encouragement, whether it be through donations or just kind words on social media. She says she loves all her fans, even the ones that are gonna turn this plead for help into a negative thing. In August 2021, Stacy made headlines as it was announced that she was going through financial difficulties, which had put her in danger of being evicted from her home. As for the reason why, Stacy says she was going through a lot of health issues. As a consequence, she wasn't able to work as much as she used to. She thought she had done enough to be able to afford where she was currently living, which was alone in a one-bedroom apartment, but obviously she hadn't. The eviction notice stated she had 1 week to either figure out how to pay or go to a legal courtroom and explain why she's behind on paying her rent. Stacy then asks anyone viewing the post for help, whether it be through club bookings or fans who want to donate. As of this year, Stacy was able to make it to DragCon 2022, where she took the meet and greet to the next level by simply residing under the table to give fans a more immersive experience. But the happy times didn't last long, because just 2 months later, in July 2022, Stacy said that while on her way to the airport, the Uber she was in ended up getting into a car crash with 2 other vehicles in the highway. This would then cause her to miss her flight and lose money on the booking she was heading to. The accident also caused her to have a hard time walking on her feet. According to Stacy, the person responsible for the crash was her Uber driver, which is why she is now trying to seek legal help to sue her driver, and that this whole situation feels like she's living in another dimension. The reality is that Stacy Layne Matthews' story isn't the only one that highlights how being on RuPaul's Drag Race is not always the ultimate ticket to success. In fact, especially in recent years, as Drag Race has gotten to produce more seasons within months, along with the international franchises pumping out more and more queens, it's become even more challenging for the queens in the industry to be able to find not only financial success, but longevity and stability in their careers. It's for this reason that we need to be more supportive of the queens, both the ones who have already been on the show and the new ones who are desperately trying to do everything they can to establish a brand within the super competitive market of the Drag Race world. Whenever there's a time that you feel like buying drag queen merch, maybe think about supporting some of the less popular queens. Or you can simply go to their social media pages and express to them some love and support. That being said, if you'd like to donate to Stacy Layne Matthews, here is information on her Venmo and PayPal. The information will also be in the description. In conclusion, Stacy Layne Matthews was a queen who was able to develop a sort of cult following after the airing of season 3. Yet despite the traction that she had gained from fans and even an appearance on All Stars 4, we never got to see Stacy grace our screens again. Along with that, Stacy's financial struggles through the years highlight how the post-Drag Race life of a queen isn't always going to be filled with success. And nowadays, it's even more competitive than how it was before. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Comment below how you felt about this topic, and if you'd like to get more updates about my future videos, you can follow me on Twitter @GreenGayYT. And I also wanted to take a moment to thank those of you who've decided to support me on Patreon, which includes Matthew Burns, Damien's Pink Shirt, Azure, and Emma Malander. And if you'd like to join the Patreon, the link will be in the description. I'll see you guys next time.